Disregarding my unappealing appearance and history of misfortune, my life can be summarized. I was betrayed by a colleague, leading to my demotion, and even my newlywed wife abandoned me. The one mocking my predicament is my attractive boss at this new, lower-ranking position. Stunned like a deer caught in headlights, she whispered to me. This was the first time her unexpected words left me perplexed. My name is Jason, a 28-year-old event planner. I recently got married, no longer a single man. With this new commitment, I believed I had my life in order. But then, an incredible incident occurred. Who requested the champagne for tomorrow's event? We're short. Aren't you mistyping the number? My boss's booming voice echoes through the office. This event I'm overseeing involves enjoying champagne and wine at a city park. I was the assistant in charge of this event. Let me check the order form. As I hurried towards my boss, he frowned at me. He struggles to work with me. Looks play a crucial role in how others perceive us, accounting for a significant portion of first impressions. Regrettably, I was endowed with a rather stern-looking countenance, often mistaken for an expression of anger. Furthermore, my stature surpassed the typical preference, adding to the impression of an imposing figure. My boss, in particular, finds my presence intimidating, and I now approach him with a sense of urgency and desperation. For a brief moment, my boss appeared ready to flee. There was my signature on the order form, but I had not reviewed this document beforehand. Initially, I was excluded from the champagne order. I was at a loss for words. One of my senior colleagues, smirking, called out to me, "You really messed up this time, didn't you? What are you going to do about it?" Despite the critical situation, he was grinning from ear to ear. That's when it dawned on me. I remembered that the person in charge of ordering was my senior. My senior and boss began to whisper amongst themselves. This was not a good sign. My senior is well-liked and has a good standing with our boss. My boss perceives me differently than others, as he dislikes me. I checked with Robert. "Jason, it was your mistake after all." My boss's face turned red with anger as he grabbed my collar. This was to be expected. This was the biggest event of the season. "It's not my fault," I said. I was removed from the wine team. No one cared to listen to my words. Robert kept smirking, looking at me. If he has time to laugh, he should do something. The big day is here, so I've made the choice to reach out to all the wholesale alcohol providers. No matter what I say, I'll likely be held responsible. I almost let out a deep breath, but there's no time for that. I need to do as much as I can with the little time I have left. The event's champagne arrived early in the morning, a true stroke of luck. A supplier I had a good rapport with reached out to liquor companies beyond our local area to help me. Those familiar with this phrase I've been using since college days would understand. Exhausted, I mumbled to myself as I dozed off at my desk. One by one, I could sense my coworkers filing in. They were all amazed to see the delivered champagne. In my drowsy state, I heard Robert's voice. "It's a breeze when I handle it. I can fix my junior's silly errors in a flash." Seemingly unaware of my dozing, he boasted as if he had single-handedly solved everything. My colleagues also expressed their admiration. True to form, Robert's charming looks, eloquent speech, and pleasant demeanor had clearly contributed to his success in life. "Are you napping while Robert's working hard?" Suddenly, I was yanked awake by the back of my neck, my boss gripping my collar, his face twisted in anger. I was promptly summoned to the director's office. Responsible for this blunder, I felt utterly irritated, glimpsing the self-satisfied expression of Robert from the corner of my vision. The message conveyed to me in the manager's office was a relocation to a remote branch. In simpler terms, a step down. However, I recently tied the knot. This poses a challenge. My voice came out involuntarily. I've only been married for 6 months, and my wife is working too. She would also be troubled by a sudden transfer. Do I look like I care about your personal problems? Reflect on the harm you were about to cause the company at your new location. Fix that attitude too. My boss was now calling the new location my demotion openly. A transfer order was thrown at me. The destination was a small branch in a seaside town. I've been demoted from my subleader position as well. My salary will likely decrease accordingly. After leaving the director's office, I immediately sent a message to my wife. I didn't have the courage to tell her directly. However, she didn't reply immediately. A week after that incident, I found myself in the town of my demotion. It was near the sea, with the scent of the tide in the air. In the end, my wife left me just 6 months into our marriage. She made it clear to me when I got demoted. She couldn't quit her job, and she married me because I was earning well. It seems I'm no longer needed as I've lost that value. I heard later that she had been involved with someone else before our marriage. My demotion was a convenient excuse for her to leave. You never know what life will throw at you. And now, at this new workplace, I have to start from scratch. The first time I showed up at work, everyone looked at me as if they were terrified. The towering man of 6'7", with a harsh gaze, just disappeared. I knew the reaction was justified, but it still hurt. I may look intimidating, but I'm not one for fights. I can't boast about my strength, and I hate conflicts. Apparently, I seem cold to others, and they tend to keep their distance from me. This has been the case since my student days, and it hasn't changed since I started working. Those who get to know me well trust me, but few people make it that far. The new office clerk is a young girl, and she seems to be constantly scared of me. My other colleagues also treat me like I'm a delicate, touchy subject. There was only one person who treated me without any discrimination. That was the branch manager, Miss Lisa Richardson. She was an astonishingly beautiful woman. I was so stunned at first that I just stared at her. She always had her long hair loosely tied up and wore heels. Her lipstick was always red. She looked both pure and strong. 2 beauty spots lined up under her left eye, and when she smiled, her eyes narrowed in a way that was really charming. On top of that, she was a perfect beauty who was great at her job. She was particularly kind to me. I'm not being conceited. She really was especially kind to me. If I was eating alone, she would always invite me into the lunch group. If I was quiet, she would bring up various topics, trying to bridge the gap between me and the other colleagues. With her help, I quickly adapted to the workplace. It became more comfortable for me than the main office. People are not as they appear, she would tell our coworkers and people in the community while introducing me. In this world setting, it's essential to build relationships with the local residents. From small to large events, our company seemed to handle almost all of them. The office clerk told me that every group we worked with became a regular customer. Recently, I've even received fish from a local lady or dishes for dinner. In return, I get asked to do various things, like cleaning high places or changing light bulbs. For the summer dance festival, we're counting on you to take the lead, Jason. Lisa said to me once I'd really settled into the local community. It appears to be conducted in collaboration with local elementary schools and community associations. I would probably be interacting with even more people than I am now. I wondered, can I really handle such a crucial role? I wondered if I could handle such an important role. I'm anxious about making a bad impression on people I meet for the first time. I don't want to put my coworkers, who have been so kind to me, in a tough spot. It was those colleagues who encouraged me when I was unable to respond right away. It's all right, we've got your back, they all reassured me. I had never been treated so gently before, and I almost found myself tearing up. It's all thanks to Lisa. When I look at her, she's perched ever so elegantly on a desk, legs crossed, smiling. The heel caught on her toes, swaying left, a strong impression. Lisa usually appears prim and proper, but sometimes odd gaps in her character show. She can be surprisingly rough around the edges or use crude language. Even though low heels would make her work easier, She always wears high stilettos. But these heels look cooler, don't they? Was her response when I asked why. It somehow felt familiar, but I couldn't recall where I heard it before. As the day of the dance festival approached, the office began to bustle. One day, a local police officer from the substation attached to the office dropped by. He was deeply engrossed in a conversation with Lisa. Overhearing their discussion, it seemed there were some suspicious people around recently. There was an incident where a great scholar was approached by a man with a sinister look who tried to get the child into his car. As soon as I heard sinister look, I knew I was the one under suspicion. Lately, I've been helping local elementary school kids build floats for the parade. Apparently, some of the parents have named me as the unsavory-looking man. Just as I was sighing in exasperation, a man burst into the office with a force that seemed to keep the front door open. He was the president of the Elementary School Parent-Teacher Association. As soon as he spotted me, he approached. "You're preying on the children under the pretense of preparing for the dance festival. You're the worst person." He yelled at me and grabbed my collar. It seems his daughter got hurt. She had a scraped knee yesterday. He was treating me like a complete pervert. He continued to berate me for being ill-natured, unfriendly, and unmarried. I had nothing to say to him. Arguing back in situations like this is futile. I decided to stay silent. "Oh, officer, if you're here, arrest this man immediately." The president twisted my arm and tried to thrust me at the officer in the back with such strong force. Twisting my arm, I couldn't help but let out a cry of ouch. In an instant, the president's hand was knocked away with great force. The one who knocked it away was Lisa. While glaring at the president, she tried to hide me behind her back. There was a height difference between us, so I was not hidden at all. "What do you think you're doing to my subordinate? Stop making unfounded accusations without any evidence." The firmness and conviction in Lisa's words seemed to overwhelm the president. At the time, his daughter was supposedly harmed. I was at the float-making site, surrounded by a bunch of kids. Lisa and other colleagues were at the site too. Even so, this man with his criminal-looking appearance, the president, kept ranting, despite the odds turning against him, making Lisa lose her cool. I believe judging people by their looks is questionable. Just then, from the entrance of the municipal office, we could hear the children's voices saying, "That's right, it's not right." It seemed they were worried about me not showing up for the float-making time and came to the office to fetch me. The children explained my innocence to the president earnestly and started crying, asking him not to bully me. At this, even the president seemed utterly perplexed and scratched his head. "I'm sorry, I lost my cool." He immediately bowed his head and apologized to me. The children looked up at me. I gave them a reassuring smile and said, "It's okay." They seemed relieved, stopped crying, and started to smile. We made up. They seemed happy. That evening, the real culprit was quickly arrested. The culprit was a young man from the next town over who bore a striking resemblance to me. "Why did you stand up for me?" "I could have been the criminal, you know." When we were left alone due to overtime work, I asked Lisa. I'd appreciated that she believed in me, but there was a feeling that she understood everything about me, which was deeply intriguing. What did she know about me, I wondered. Maybe she was a bit inclined to pick a fight. Suddenly faced with my baseless accusation, Lisa stared at me dumbfounded. Then she broke into a gentle smile. With her heels clicking, she made her way over and stood next to my desk. "Did you really forget about me?" She leaned in and whispered, causing my heart to race. Lisa reached out and propped up my chin. She looked straight into my eyes. It was my first time. "Will you remember if I do this?" Slowly, her hands reached out towards my petrified face. Instinctively, I squeezed my eyes shut. The next moment, my cheeks were being pulled with an unbelievable force. What are you doing?" My words were distorted as my cheeks were being pulled from both sides. Lisa chuckled. "Come on, remember it." As she said this, she extended her hand in front of me. A large silver ring was on a finger that was usually bare. The moment I saw it, my memory center kicked into high gear. This ring. What? This ring. It's the one I gave you, right? Lisa watched me, grinning at my surprise. This ring was my first gift for a girl when I was still in middle school. I frequently visited a bookstore where a girl worked. Though I say girl, she must have already been in college. The first time I saw her in the bookstore, I was surprised by how beautiful she was. While I was frequenting the bookstore just to see her, I noticed she was being avoided by the other employees. Perhaps I noticed it because I was facing similar isolation at school. When I listened to the conversations between the employees, it seemed the reason was simply because she was beautiful. Just petty jealousy among women. Short black hair and multiple piercings, her nails were always painted black. Apparently, they didn't like her style. I thought about how tough it must be for her. One day, right before closing, I really wanted to read a book, so I dashed into the bookstore. In the corner of the nearly closed shop, she was crouched down, looking for something. Are you looking for something? I mustered up my courage and spoke to her, which seemed to surprise her. As she stood up, her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me. It was an image I still remember. It made my heart pound. I lost my ring. Indeed, the silver ring she usually wore was missing from her finger. She told me it was a gift from her brother. There was no one else in the store. Silently, I crouched down on the floor and started to help her look for it. In the end, we didn't find the ring. She bowed her head to me and thanked me. I was frustrated that we couldn't find it, but I was happy to have shared that time with her. The next day, when I went to the bookstore, she was not there, and the usual group that spoke ill of her was. I was speechless at what the leader of the group was loudly boasting about. She was proudly talking about how she had thrown the girl's silver ring into the river. Apparently, the leader's boyfriend fell for the girl, and that was the cause. Talk about spiteful. Feeling sorry for her after she searched so hard, I spent all my savings and bought a ring for the first time in my life. Later, when she was at the cash register, I slipped the ring onto her finger. In the midst of the chaos, I clearly remember that I was so flustered that I put it on her left ring finger. Her surprised face with wide eyes and the face of Lisa, who was laughing in front of me now, overlapped in my memory. You were the first one to put a ring on my left ring finger, I said. Jason, leave. Lisa apparently noticed me at the company induction ceremony. She found out my department, my name, and while she thought of speaking to me someday, many years passed by. When it was decided that I was to be transferred here, she was so delighted that she even danced a little jig. No way, I became somewhat embarrassed and couldn't look at Lisa's face. But one thing became clear to me. Having been judged based on my appearance and feeling hurt by it, I realized that she understood my feelings. She had been sympathizing with me all along. So is this ring valid, or was it just a coincidence? Lisa tells me that after that, I became too embarrassed to go to the bookstore, but she had been waiting for me all along. I was surprised when you crawled around on the floor, so earnestly looking for the ring for her. Ever since then, I've been concerned about you. I couldn't recognize Lisa, who had a completely different atmosphere from her student days, but talking like this, she hasn't changed at all from that time. Of course it's valid. Lisa grinned satisfactorily at my response. I guess I won't be able to win against her, but I feel like we can be together forever because we understand the same kind of pain. Next time, I'll propose with a proper ring. Sarah, the president's daughter, smiled and told me, very impressive for someone with just a high school diploma to be thinking about voluntary retirement. I gave her an equally wide smile in return. Since I lead the company in sales, I predict a $30 million loss for the business. However, because I was dismissed, I will be leaving the company. Sarah didn't seem to get what I was saying. I was ready. I just heard, Tom. Are you really resigning? When I picked up the phone, George, our president, sounded frantic. Yes, the list of people choosing voluntary retirement included my name. That is absurd. Your name cannot possibly be on that list. There must be a mistake. I was certain that wasn't an error. I believe Sarah is well aware. Perhaps you ought to ask her. Sarah? Anyway, I'll call you back. I ended the call with the president and began unpacking the boxes that had arrived at my residence. A part of me was genuinely anticipating what the president would do at this point. Tom is my name. Last month was my 41st birthday. I worked part-time jobs to earn money during my college years since I couldn't force myself to attend classes. After all, I merely received a high school diploma when I graduated. However, leading a carefree life let me realize that I couldn't continue in this manner indefinitely. I so made the decision to get some credentials for the future. I had attended a trade school and graduated with credentials as an electrician and a hazardous material handler. I eventually found employment at a company that makes industrial equipment. I worked in measuring and inspection for a few years before my accomplishments were acknowledged and I transitioned into sales. I was good at sales. I know our products well enough to provide appropriate answers to questions and had no trouble interacting with others. Then I met George, the president of Johnson Trading, 10 years ago at an event organized by the manufacturer of industrial equipment. I had a nice rapport with him right away. Our conversations were first solely business-related, but with time, we began to go out for drinks and socialize more. I have a lovely present for you, George. Would you like a drink today? That sounds fantastic. In fact, I also discovered a fantastic location. Even though there was undoubtedly a hidden agenda related to work, I nevertheless had a good time going out for drinks with George. You're a genuinely nice guy, Tom. It's uncommon to find a man like you these days. I'm honored to hear that from you, George. At the bar where we had drunk many times before, I poured whiskey into a glass. The glass, filled with whiskey, clinked with ice, shining amber. Tom, today I have a scouting offer for you. You excel in sales, and I think you can shine even more at my company. Johnson Trading is a company for businesses where sales directly affect revenue. The equipment they handle ranges from facilities for automobile manufacturers to devices for semiconductor makers and microscopes for maintaining quality. Our sales depend on performance. The more results you deliver, the more it reflects in your salary. So, I think it's perfect for you. How about it? Want to take on a new challenge in life? I was excited by George's proposal. Of course, I was satisfied with my current company, but I was also 31. If I was going to switch jobs, now was the chance, and the prospect of a salary based on sales results was attractive. After a night of thought, I contacted George and transferred to Johnson Trading. At Johnson Trading, I continued to achieve one success after another. My experience working at the industrial equipment manufacturer made explaining inspection devices a breeze. Getting along well with corporate representatives, I was able to proactively suggest necessary items and eventually gained their trust. If you ask Tom, there's nothing he can't find. Thankfully, I was regarded so at various companies, and I was soon handling contracts worth millions annually. Before I knew it, I had achieved the top sales performance. Then, one day Sarah, the president's daughter, joined the company. Tom, I'd like you to meet my daughter. Hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you. Sarah had just graduated from a university in this city. She was brimming with youth and had a dazzling smile. Nice to meet you too. I'm Tom. I look forward to working with you. Tom here is our top sales representative. You should try to learn from him, Sarah. Wow, that's amazing. I'll do my best. It was clear how much George doted on her, his only daughter. Seeing him so affectionate made me feel warm inside. Sarah was assigned to the HR department. However, as time passed, I began to hear not so great things about her. The senior employee she worked with said, "She's not useful." She only responds when spoken to and cares only about her nails and smartphone. At first, everyone just laughed it off as unavoidable. But then, one day, one of the senior employees suddenly decided to resign. She was competent and always ready to answer any questions about the company. I suspect that an incident I accidentally witnessed one night might have been the cause. When I was passing by the president's office, I saw that he and Sarah were the only ones inside. "Hey, Daddy, listen. That lady boss in my department is being so mean to me. She doesn't answer my questions and deliberately gives me nasty tasks." "Is that so? You're having a tough time, Sarah. That's admirable." "Yes, I'm doing my job properly, but I think I'll get sick from the stress soon," I thought to myself. "Oh, come on. What are you saying?" But I didn't dwell on it too much, as George was a sensible man and wouldn't take Sarah's words at face value. Less than a month later, it happened. Rumors spread that a transfer was being considered, but the senior employee couldn't accept it and ultimately chose to resign. On her last day, I happened to meet her. "Tom, thank you so much for helping me all these years." "Are you really leaving? That's sad," I said. With tears in her eyes, she thanked me and said quietly, "Be careful with Sarah. She's not as foolish as she seems." With those words, she left. I could never forget what she said. As the years went by one, the senior members of the HR department left. In their place came newcomers the same age or younger than Sarah. Soon Sarah, who had only been there a few years, was treated like a senior. Consequently, it was inevitable that Sarah was appointed as the head of HR. Even so, I thought this would not affect my work. But Sarah's influence was closer to me than I expected. I had a junior colleague, James, who had just turned 35, like me. James had joined midway through his career, and we spent our days making sales calls together. He was a promising asset, likely to surpass me in the future. James, with his refreshing demeanor, was popular among clients and female colleagues alike. Although my chances to go drinking with George had decreased, I went out more often with James. When work ran late, we would drink together and encourage each other, facing the next day with renewed vigor. I heard that James and Sarah had started dating right after she became the department head. Around that time, it became my routine to listen to Sarah's stories from James. "Tom, listen, I'm going on a date with Sarah. Do you know any good places? She just asked me to have lunch together. From now on, she's going to make lunch for me." I listened to James's smitten stories with a smile. If James was happy, that was enough for me. However, as days passed, I noticed something was off with him. "Sorry, Tom. Sarah says I shouldn't go to entertainment anymore. She hates it when I drink with my colleagues and come home drunk." Another day brought another concern. "Sarah keeps saying I work too much overtime. I explain that it's just necessary work, but somehow I'm always doubted." I couldn't hold it in any longer and confided in James. "Come on, what's there to doubt? I'm not sure myself. She suspects I might be going out drinking or getting cozy with other women." I was so flabbergasted I couldn't even respond. I wish she could see how seriously James worked just once. Just then, James's phone rang. "Oh, it's Sarah. Well, I'm heading home." James looked worn out. I worried but knew better than to meddle in romance. A few days later, I heard rumors that Sarah and James had broken up. James took some time off work and then resigned. I deeply regretted not reaching out to him more seriously. I didn't want anything to do with Sarah, but one day, by George's orders, I had to take her to entertain a client from Company Simpson. When the president of Company Simpson visited our office previously, he seemed to take a liking to Sarah when they met by chance. "I will be with you today." "Sure, I'll handle the business documents." "Thank you. I appreciate it." She was always lively and polite, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah might mess something up. We entered the restaurant to entertain the president of Company Simpson. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us today. Good evening. This place is actually my recommendation. I was surprised by her casual approach, but the president of Company Simpson didn't seem to mind. I decided to just observe and not interfere. Let me pour you some wine. Sarah filled the president's glass, and we toasted. The meal was served, and the conversation gradually livened up. The president seemed pleased every time Sarah praised him excessively. Maybe Sarah was cut out for sales after all. I thought as I started my usual sales pitch. Tom, where did you go to school? I've been waiting for this, I thought with a sly grin. I actually graduated from high school. During my studies, being asked about my educational background was my specialty, and I had a staple story ready that usually piqued interest. Initially, people might feel uneasy, but once we got to the actual business talk, their anxiety seemed to dissolve. They were often impressed by how hard I had worked with just a high school education. However, this time, Sarah interfered. Wow, you graduated high school? There are still people like that around today. Well, after that, I went to a vocational school for my certifications. What about you, President? Where did you graduate from? Sarah directed the conversation to the president of Company Simpson, who seemed pleased. I graduated from New York University. Wow, that's impressive. The conversation then continued between just Sarah and the president. I tried to steer it back to business, but any interruption from me was sure to be frowned upon. After the meal, we saw the president off. Sarah, can I talk to you for a moment? Because of you dominating the conversation today, I couldn't get to any of my business points. Think a little, will you? When it came to work, I couldn't compromise. Sarah looked dissatisfied with my remarks. The conversation with him was going great, wasn't it? Tom, are you really the top salesman? And I just remembered. I can't believe you're just a high school grad. Sarah laughed at me in a way that felt mocking. I felt anger rising, but I reminded myself that she was much younger than me. I had to act like the adult in the situation, so I tried to calm down. I'm not ashamed of being a high school graduate, and I actually contribute to the company. Today's meeting was not just about hospitality, but also about connecting it to business. Didn't I say I would handle the business, Doc? Sarah played with her hair the entire time I was speaking. Got it. Are we done? The old man's lecture is boring, you know. I was speechless with astonishment. Sarah quickly left and went home. 2 years later, while I was on a business trip to Thailand, the company announced voluntary retirement. Sarah contacted me to say I was a prime candidate for retirement. Without waiting to return to the U.S., I applied immediately, and my application was accepted. I was to retire in a week. The president, George, was also abroad on business, so it seemed Sarah handled my retirement paperwork. When I returned from the trip, Sarah came to me with a complete set of retirement documents. Pretty impressive for someone with just a high school diploma to be thinking about voluntary retirement, Sarah said to me with a grin. I responded with a broad smile. I am number 1 in sales, so I think the company will lose $30 million. But I will leave the company because I am fired. Sarah seemed not to understand what I meant. My preparations were already in place. I retired and went straight to Thailand. In fact, over the past 2 years, I had been to Thailand several times for work and coincidentally met my former junior, James, at an expat apartment. James, tan and healthy, had regained his bright smile. We had dinner at a Thai street food stall, and I had the chance to hear his story. After that, I really couldn't feel like going back to work. Did you hear? I broke up with Sarah. Yeah, but I didn't expect you to quit your job. Sorry, I didn't say goodbye. I haven't had much experience with women. I get so lost. Even then, when I did exactly what Sarah said, I only got complaints. While talking, James seemed to get more dejected, so I hurriedly spoke to him. Don't worry about it. The important thing is that you're doing well now. You look completely different from back then." James brightened up with a smile. "Thank you. A senior from my college picked me up, and now we're working together here." Seeing James smile almost made me cry. We ate dinner, drank, and celebrated our reunion that night. When I reached the airport, James picked me up and drove me to the apartment where I would start my new life. As I was about to enter the apartment, I received a call from George, the president, back in the U.S. "Good evening. It's been a while, Tom. I just heard. Did you really resign? Is that true?" As soon as I answered the phone, George sounded panicked. "Yes, my name was on the list of those opting for voluntary retirement." "That's ridiculous. It's impossible for your name to be on that list. It must be some mistake." I knew it wasn't a mistake. Sarah knows very well about it. Maybe you should ask her, George. Anyway, I'll call you back. After hanging up with George, I unpacked the luggage that had been delivered to my apartment. I wondered what he would do next, and a part of me was actually looking forward to it. The next day, George called me again. "Hello, Tom." I spoke to Sarah, but she said she didn't understand. "Well, it was indeed just your voluntary retirement. I saw the paperwork myself, and there was no mistake." Indeed, there was no mistake about the voluntary retirement, and as expected, Sarah probably didn't say much. "Tom, was there anything unsatisfactory? If there's anything I can solve, please tell me." George's words stirred something within me, but I knew it was too late to change anything. I had made up my mind. I did have complaints. When you recruited me to your company, you said that hard work would be rewarded, right? That the results would reflect in compensation. Yes, of course. That hasn't changed. But it has changed. No matter how many contracts I secured, the profits were just used up as company expenses, and my sales figures were almost non-existent. My sales performance has been reported as poor these past few years, hasn't it? This was the truth. I had thought your performance was dropping. I assumed you were just going through a rough patch. But, expenses, you say? You might not be aware, George. In fact, Sarah spent most of the company's expenses. I revealed this, which clearly confused him. I found it odd too, and started investigating. This is just my guess, but you remember the hospitality we did for President Simpson's company. Around that time, Sarah's own entertainment expenses started to increase. Oh yes, but that was for work, wasn't it? I understand that taking clients out to meals is part of the job. However, for someone not in sales, her frequency of outings was too high. George fell silent. I understand if you can't believe what I'm saying, but please check it yourself. With that, I ended the call, and the day was over. As I collapsed into bed, my heart was racing. What will Sarah do now? I rolled over and looked up at the brand new ceiling. It's really too late now. I took a deep breath and resumed unpacking. 3 days later, George contacted me again. This time, it wasn't over the phone, but online. So, I opened my laptop and waited. "Good evening, Tom. Thanks for today. About our previous conversation. Actually, I've called Sarah here. She says she has something she wants to discuss. Could you listen to her?" Even though it was just on screen, it was the first time I had seen him in a long while, and he seemed tired. I was curious about what Sarah wanted to talk about. "Yes, that's fine." Sarah appeared on the screen. "Good evening." "Good evening." For some reason, Sarah fell silent, but I waited patiently for her to speak. Suddenly, Sarah started shouting. "Tom, you spread lies to my dad last time, saying I was entertaining too much and wasting expenses. Why would you say such awful things? I can't believe this." Sarah began talking all at once and eventually broke down crying over her desk. I quietly turned down the volume on my computer as she spoke. But I hadn't expected her to suddenly start accusing me. "Sarah, I'm sorry you're hurt. Tom, after our last conversation, I also asked Sarah, and then she said what you just heard. I was dumbfounded. George seemed completely convinced by Sarah, though I wished he'd separate personal feelings from business matters. Sarah, do you remember how many times you went abroad this year before I left? Sarah suddenly looked up, seemingly faking her tears. About 3 times, right? As far as I can remember, you've been there 10 times. Sarah looked at me suspiciously. Why do you know so much? Were you targeting me or something? Though I was frustrated, I kept my cool. You bragged about buying that outfit overseas, right? Every time you went, you'd come back with bags, shoes, and clothes. You always talked about it proudly, so everyone knew, not just me. I heard you were taking time off, but is that true? I did take time off, but no, it was for inspections. Her statements were all over the place. If it was a business inspection, did you produce any plans or reports afterward? It wasn't just a fun trip, right? I haven't heard anything from the sales department. Sarah fell silent. The clothes and bags were expenses, right? George, please make sure to discuss this with the accountant. Oh, I see. I'll do that. Sarah's face turned red with anger. And about those fancy restaurants you use for entertainment is fine. But did any contracts result from those? Tom also went to those, didn't he? That's true, but I only use such places when absolutely necessary. Depending on the client's preference, sometimes a cafe or a diner is more appropriate. It seems Sarah was not interested in listening to what I had to say. Why are you only blaming me? Dad, you believe in me, right? George, suddenly thrown into the conversation, was troubled. What Tom is saying is true. He doesn't always go to the same place. He's very good at socializing and really listens to what people have to say, which is why he secures contracts. Thank you, but that's not the issue here. Sarah, you effectively erased the revenue I brought in through contracts. Sarah, who had been loudly protesting, suddenly fell silent. What are you talking about? That's impossible. Her tone changed drastically, and she glared at me. I thought you would say that. I shared my screen and showed them the file I had created. I'm meticulous by nature. I record who I meet, where and when, every time. I also note the content of our conversations and their food preferences because I never know how it might connect later. It helps me understand the relationships between businesses. This document, a result of continuous effort from my previous job, could very well be called my asset. It helped me gain trust and build rapport with my clients. I've recorded every contract in detail, including what the next steps were. Based on my feel from my time in sales, falling below last year's figures was impossible. Tom, can you send me that? Yes, I have prepared last year's data. I'll paste it in the chat. I attached the PDF to the chat and sent it. The document contained only the contract details, dates, and amounts, leaving out the finer personal details. Once again, I urge you to look into this thoroughly. If there's anything else, please contact me. I ended the call. Sarah didn't speak another word. I suspected they might contact me again, but until then, I would do what I could. A week later, George wanted to talk again. I had told James about the whole situation, and he said, "Please let me join," so he secretly sat in on the call. The call, like last time, was conducted online. George and Sarah were already on the screen. Good evening, Tom. Sorry to bother you every time, but thank you for today. First off, after reviewing the documents you sent, what you said was correct. I was relieved to hear George acknowledge this directly. I'm truly sorry. Look, Sarah, you apologized properly too. I'm sorry, but hospitality is an important job, right? And it has nothing to do with Tom quitting. Tom wanted to quit, right? What kind of apology was that? She clearly didn't think she was at fault. Yes, that's true. Look, I was even on a list of voluntary retirees. George looked at me, shocked. Had he not known about this discussion either? George, I'll also attach this in the chat. Well, I would have retired anyway. He scrutinized the screen like he was devouring the information. It seemed he had reached his limit. You foolish girl. You've been doing this all along. No, Dad said it. The company started recruiting for voluntary retirements because things were getting tough. And taking a high school grad to entertainments would have made our clients doubt our credibility. Have you never listened to Tom's story? Do you know how hard he worked to get here and how many years he has been working and achieving results after graduating? A heated argument between father and daughter began in the background. James couldn't help but burst into laughter at the scene. Who's that? Hi, long time no see, George and Sarah. Sarah noticed James and seemed startled. James, well, it's good to see you're well. Are you with Tom right now? Yes. I never thought I'd hear from Sarah's own mouth how important entertainment is. I recalled how Sarah used to insist that James shouldn't entertain when they were dating. James, can you tell me more about it? What I heard directly from Sarah was that the people who do entertainments aren't good people. She said they misunderstand that using money to have fun is their job. Well, that's something. I couldn't help but blurt out, that's your misunderstanding. I kept detailed records like Tom taught me. Thanks to your objections, my records show a sharp decrease in entertainment activities. Stop making things up. Sarah burst into tears and buried her face in the desk. James and I were just stating facts. Both of you, I'm truly sorry. I know it sounds self-serving, but would you consider coming back? George begged us, but I wasn't going back to that company. Prepare $1 million. No, $5 million. I have no intention of coming back. But if Sarah can arrange for $5 million, I will properly hand over my duties. George looked at me, dumbfounded. What are you talking about? Why should we pay $5 million just for a handover? I sent my records before, and they include new facility installations and commitments for maintenance contractor NOAs. That alone is worth $30 million a year. George and Sarah seemed taken aback. I've built these relationships over many years. I could only make those proposals because of that. The intricate details and future needs are something only I would know. I looked at Sarah. The expensive trips abroad you took, the luxurious meals at fancy restaurants that didn't lead to contracts. All of my $30 million was nearly wiped out by Sarah's personal expenses. The only reason we haven't lost money so far is because of my sales. George, isn't the company operating at a loss now? He remained silent and bowed his head. If expenses exceed income, of course, it turns into a loss. If it's an investment that leads to future returns, it's valuable. Let me say it again. Without my sales, it will just turn into a loss. Jesus, you think it's my fault. Sarah's pale face looked at James and me. This foolish girl, he muttered, still looking down. Dad, I'm sorry, but we can manage without paying, right? That's impossible. In fact, today the client said they wouldn't sign unless it was with Tom. That's not all. Our new contact person has been reprimanded for not being able to communicate effectively. That's why we really needed Tom back. Sarah, can you handle this? Sarah turned pale under George's scolding. I'm sorry, but I will not return to Johnson Trading. I am currently working in Thailand with James. If this needs to be handled formally as a business matter, I am available at any time. Please think it over. Understood. I'll consider it. Our call ended. Wow, that was quite a drama, James sighed after the call. We really did work hard back then, didn't we? It's easy to miss what's happening right under your nose. We laughed heartily from the depths of our bellies and spent the night drinking. The $5 million deal I proposed was later formally agreed upon. Considering the $30 million loss, paying it would be no loss at all. George made that decision. That amount was promptly paid to a consulting firm in Thailand, turning into my earnings. Although I had just arrived in Thailand, I would be returning to the U.S. to train the employees of Johnson Trading rigorously. Of course, I intended to ensure that their investment was more than worthwhile. Sarah is no longer at the company. I've indulged her too much because she was my only daughter. Disowned, in a manner of speaking, by George, Sarah was forced to live a modest life through part-time jobs. The luxury car and designer goods she had bought were sold off to cover part of the $5 million. I heard she started living alone, but probably struggled, as she had never done laundry or housework before. She targeted a wealthy marriage, immersing herself in matchmaking parties. Perhaps because she was flattered for the first time in a while, she felt like a queen, until she fell for a bad man. She contributed her money to him, and after a while, he abandoned her. A year later, I finished the handover tasks at Johnson Trading and returned to Thailand. James picked me up at the airport, and we headed to my apartment. Great job, so the handover went smoothly. I did what I could. George showed me the performance figures, and it looks like they'll manage somehow. Well, just eliminating Sarah's wasteful spending was a big benefit for the company. James laughed out loud. I also pitched to clients in Thailand with factories and branches here. That's great. I was wondering why inquiries had increased. Oh, they were already coming in. Looks like some good connections will be made. I sighed with relief and settled back into my seat. The car sped along under the blazing sun. The lively pop music James played suited Thailand perfectly. I laughed from the bottom of my heart. The future